Hi, welcome to Success Today with Jack Canfield. I'm your host, Jack Canfield. And I have a wonderful guest today, Leonie Rosenstiel. And she is an award-winning author, and she likes to describe herself as a cultural whistleblower. So let's start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and some background.
Okay, well, I didn't start out this way. I started out as a musician.
A musician?
Yeah. And after that, I did other things. I went into academe and got some degrees. And after a while, I discovered that my parents were getting older. I wasn't, but they were. And eventually, my mother ended up under a state-appointed guardian. And it changed my life for 14 years, not in a positive way. And so I came to the conclusion that other people were having this experience as well. And I wanted to help other people not have the full experience that I had, which included years of a gag order where I wasn't allowed to speak about my mother or my family. And I discovered a lot of people have that happen to them. So I decided that I was going to get my freedom back, and I was going to help other people keep their freedom or get it back.
So this event, which was your mother's situation, and you basically then had this issue, you had to deal with the court system. Give us a little more detail on the court system and how you got involved with that.
Oh, you don't want to hear the whole thing. I'll just give you a short version.
Okay.
There are people involved who do not want you to have access to your loved one, and they prevented me from seeing my mother for almost 3 years.
Really?
And she was in her 90s at that point. So 3 years is a long time. And I had to fight to get access. Then I had to fight to be able to see her. I mean, it was one long struggle, and a very expensive one, too. But not everybody who has this problem has money. And so a lot of people never get to see their loved ones again. And so it's a problem to try to avoid that in the first place. So I try to teach people how to avoid it, how to understand that it can happen, and then how to avoid it.
So here we have a program called Success Today.
Mm-hmm.
You're obviously very successful in what you do because you've got some award-winning books. And every time, we've known each other for a while now, and every time I get an email from you about a new award you've gotten for your books. So how many books have you written now?
3 books on the subject of guardianship, and one that I did a chapter with you in your book. The first one was in detail about what happened to my mother, because very often what the court does, it does something called sequestration, where it hides all the records, and then nobody can ever see them. So I wanted my mother's records released, and it took me 5 years because I was also under a gag order not to speak. And so I was basically in hiding for some years, because if I said the word mother to anybody, they could report me to the judge and put me in jail. So I was really under a lot of constrictions. That finally came to a close. I had a very good attorney, and the press came to my rescue as well. So that was helpful. But not everybody has that happen. And so the idea is to teach people how to avoid the problem by taking preventive measures if you can, and to mitigate the damage, to lessen the damage to your family, because it's very damaging to families. It's a whole ecosystem that's being disrupted, not just one person's problem.
Right. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Since we're called Success Today, I'm just curious, what does success mean to you in regard to all of this?
Well, success is either helping people avoid the problem. I'll give you an example. I had someone come to me, and she said, she was a retired minister, and she said, you know, my mother-in-law is having problems, and the whole family's worried about her. And in fact, we got so worried that we called in a social worker, and she gave us a list of all the things that we needed to do to keep my mother-in-law safe, because she's living in her own place. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, there was a list of 12 things. I said, how are you doing on the list? She said, my mother-in-law will only do 2 of the things, and she's kind of not wanting to do the other things. I said, well, what are you going to do about that? Well, I think we'll call the social worker back and ask the social worker to talk to her. I said, do you know what a mandated reporter is? She said, no. I said, a mandated reporter is someone who's licensed by the state and is required by the state. If they think someone's in danger, then they have to report that to the state because it's a problem. I said, how long has the situation been going? Oh, about 4 months, and the social worker came 3 months ago. I said, you mean you have a loved one who's actually been in danger for 3 months? Do you think the social worker will still think she's in danger? Oh, well, she is. I said, well, why are you asking someone to report your loved one to the state? And that's how the state tends to come in and take people over, is that someone reports. It can be a gardener or a messenger or anybody who can report these things. And then the snowball starts rolling.
So success is intervening so people know that they don't have to go down that road?
Well, success is knowing in advance that these things can happen. And so you don't wait 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand that if there's a problem and everybody knows there's a problem, you take care of the problem so you don't lose the person.
Right, right. So you have a service. You assist people. You've written the books, but you're also available as a consultant.
Yes, and I have a course and a summit, and I also help people learn how to have enough money to take care of the people who need the help, because it's very, very expensive. And people don't realize, people will come and tell me, well, everything's fine because I have someone to be with my mother during the day. And so everything's fine. But she's forgetful and she turns off the stove. And so this person comes and is staying with her during the day. And I said, well, does her dementia turn off at 5 p.m.? And they look at me like, what is she talking about? Oh my gosh. I said, if you have the flu, do you have it 24 hours or do you have it from 9 to 5?
So if someone comes to work with you, what happens? How do they work with you?
Okay, they'll come in and they'll tell me where they are. Maybe it's a friend of theirs just had a problem with a parent and they're now worried about their parents. And so I will run through a little bit of the situation. I might refer them to one of my books that has information on it. I've got the 3 books that I have. One is called Protecting Mama. That was the one about my mother. The second one was I realized people didn't always have access to legal assistance when they needed it. Most people don't have an attorney on staff or on retainer, because that's very expensive too. And so I have a book called Legal Protection, which tells them how to get subscription services or other kinds of help that will give them ongoing advice, because you do need advice. You just don't want to lose your bank account paying for it. And the third one, which I just published a few months ago, is called They're Coming for Your Elders and Your Inheritance, which is how people feel when they get into the middle of this big situation and they're in the middle of it and their loved one is in danger and they're trying to help. Because the time you make your worst decisions is when you're agitated and when you're upset.
So you once shared a horror story with me about a family and they had a farm. Would you be willing to share that with our listeners and viewers?
Absolutely. There was a family in southern New Mexico, and they had a ranch. In the family for a long time, the father decided he wanted to protect the ranch for the members of the family. And so he put it in a trust and he made his eldest son the trustee. Well, he had 2 sets of children from 2 different wives, and they all got along. Everything was fine. The son took care of the property and managed it. One day, the father had a terrible accident and was taken to the hospital. A hospital called the son, said, we don't think your dad's going to make it. You better get the family together and come see him. Well, nobody in the family had had any contact with an attorney for years. The person who drew up the trust was long retired, long gone. They hadn't seen him. So the son looks, at that point, this was the early years of the 21st century, and the son is looking in the phone book, finds only one attorney because it's a rural ranch in the middle of nowhere. And he sees the name of an attorney, says Trusts and Estates, and she's in a city 200 miles away. So he calls her and says, "You do Trusts and Estates?" She says, "Yes." "What's going on with you?" And he says, "Well, my dad's in the hospital and they don't expect him to make it." "And what's going on with the estate plan?" "Oh, there's a trust. Everything should be fine." She says, "Well, how many people benefit from the trust?" So he starts telling her. She says, "You have a problem. I'll be right down. I'll meet you at the hospital. I know how to fix your problem." So the family assembles at the hospital. The attorney comes down. The eldest son signs. So everybody else signs the papers that she gives them. And they worry about their father. She said, "Don't worry about anything. I'll take care of everything." So a couple of days later, the dad passes. And they discover that the farm is posted for auction. And they are absolutely devastated. What the heck happened? This was the family farm. We were going to pass it on to future generations. He goes to the attorney. "What did you do?" She said, "Well, I dissolved the trust. Those were the papers you signed at the hospital." "Well, why did you do that?" "Well, we learn in law school the purpose of a trust is to be dispersed to the beneficiaries. And all those people you named, those were the beneficiaries. And we're dispersing that money to all of them. So they're all going to get an equal share and everybody's going to be happy." "But that wasn't what my father wanted." "Well, that's what it says in law school that we're supposed to do, and that's what's been done." So son is still angry and goes to the Bar Association. Bar Association backs up the attorney. Yes, she did what she was supposed to do. She didn't have any other instructions. That was what she was supposed to do. He is still not satisfied. He decides to sue her. It goes to what they call deposition, where people are taking statements. And I read the deposition of the attorney. And she said, "This is what we learn in law school. Everybody is taught this, that the best possible thing for a trust is for everybody gets equal shares because they're related, and the trust is dissolved. But if he were hiring me for myself, for him, personally, instead of hiring me on behalf of the trust, I would have given him different advice." How on earth would a layperson who's not an attorney know that?
Yeah.
They wouldn't.
So you've got your books. You're available as a consultant. If people want to work with you, and I highly recommend they do, this is an area of life. Most people don't ever deal with death. They don't deal with hospice. They don't deal with elder care. They don't deal with the legal system. We never think about it until it's too late. So how can people get in touch with you, get a hold of your books, and reach you as a consultant?
Okay, well, you can go to the address on the screen, dayspringresources.com, and get in touch with me. You can take my courses. I'm available to speak for people because I find that they're always surprised at some of the things that I can tell them, like how to avoid being taken under guardianship by accident, which happens a lot.
All right, very good. Well, I love what you're doing. I think it's so important. I think it's going to save a lot of people a lot of grief. I'd hate to see anyone experience what the family you just talked about experienced when it's not really what people wanted to happen. And so we always say ignorance is not always bliss, as we know. It can be a real mess. Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jack.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you for joining us too.